Close to 400 people signed up for the webinar. About 260 showed up to the webinar live. When we closed the cart, we had about 40 sales, which was really, really cool.
Welcome, Mike. So I'd love to get a sense for how your business works. So what problem do you solve?
So I help foster and adoptive parents. That's the niche that I'm in. And I help them find basically education and support. It's a hard journey for foster adoptive parents. So that's really what we center everything around.
And what's the product?
Well, we have multiple products, but the primary product that we have is a coaching program, one-to-one coaching, a 90-day program. And then we have a series of courses that we do, training courses that we offer as well.
How many courses?
We have currently 3 different courses that we do.
So of the 4 products, you got 1 coaching program, 3 courses. Mm-hmm. Which of those is the biggest needle mover revenue-wise?
The coaching program for sure, because it's the highest ticket offer. So yeah, that would probably be by far the one that does the best, that moves the needle the most.
And okay, so I'm a foster adoptive parent, fostering a kid, want to adopt them. I hire you to coach me. What's my experience? What are the deliverables?
So you'll receive a 60-minute Zoom call every week. We do that for 90 days. We also have a training portal that you get access to that basically functions. It's a learning management system, so it follows along with you week to week. We basically drip the content over the 90 days. So each week a new module opens. And then in between the 60-minute Zoom calls week to week, you also have a private Slack channel that you can message me at any time on. So basically direct access to us, and then direct access to what we call our army of pros, medical, therapeutic professionals that can answer your biggest questions.
Yeah. And what's the price point for coaching?
Our 90-day program is $3,500.
Okay.
For 90 days. Yep.
And who's your best fit client? Is it literally anybody who's wanting to foster to adopt, or is there a sub niche you service?
Yeah, it's actually people who have already adopted. So it's what we would call the post-adoptive phase or post-fostering phase. So they've started fostering, they've already adopted their child. Essentially, people who realize, wow, I don't know how to parent this child. Like, we're in crisis mode. So that's our ideal client.
So how did you get into this? Let's go to Mike the person. How did you get into selling? I'm assuming you have, well, let's maybe pause here. Typically, the interviews I talk with clients, and you are a client and a coach at Growth Tools. So I know way more about you as a human than I do a typical person will interview, which I have a lot of questions around that. We'll see if we get to them or not. Yeah. But thanks for jumping on and doing this. This is very cool. We haven't talked your business deep at all. So literally these are, every question I've asked so far is a brand new question to me. So, so how did you get into this topic and this coaching thing?
Yeah, well, gosh, we don't have time to go into all of it, but I can give you kind of like the quick overview. Yeah. So I have 9 children all through adoption. We started this in 2000. We started the adoption journey in 2002. Long story short there, my wife came to me and said, hey, I think we should adopt. And I'm like, whoa, hold on, time out. Because in my family, everybody came into the world the old-fashioned way. So that was really kind of a foreign concept to me. My heart changed. We started the journey 2002. From 2002 till today, present day, we've adopted 2 children privately, and the others are all through foster care. So 7 through foster care, 2 through private adoption. The way that we started doing what we do now is that probably about 12 years ago, we suddenly realized, holy cow, this is really hard. We don't understand the trauma. We don't understand the behaviors that we're seeing from our children. We know that they've had some really hard situations, hard pasts, but we really didn't understand like why the outbursts, why the meltdowns, why the really, really hard days. So that kind of propelled us into a really deep dive. It's a deep dive into education and trying to figure out like why the behaviors, why the long days, the anxiety, you name it, right? And really out of that, we recognize, man, there's a lot of people struggling who are looking for the same answers that we are. And out of that deep dive education, we began to formulate products and services that really answered a lot of these big questions that parents just like us were dealing with. So started off as a blog, then a podcast, then became a whole education portal. So yeah, that's the really quick overview.
And how long have you been in business, and what's the website if people want to go check it out?
Yeah, so we launched in October 2014, so a little less than 10 years now. And our business is called the Honestly Adoption Company. You can find it by visiting honestlyadoption.com.
All right, so here you've had a recent big win in your business, something that went really well. So tell me about it. What happened?
Yeah, so well, from where we're recording this now, 2 weeks ago, I opened up a webinar that really was based around teaching people how to effectively respond to their children's behaviors. And surprisingly, close to 400 people signed up for the webinar. So 380, I think, is what we ended up having registration-wise. About 260, 270, right around that number showed up to the webinar live, which was a surprise. And then from that,
70% show up rate. That's really good. And this is a live webinar, right?
The live webinar, yeah.
Okay. All right.
And of course, on the back end of the webinar, we sold access to our behavior response workshop, one of our courses. And when we closed the cart 6 days later, we had about 40 sales, which was really, really cool.
Yes. Okay. So compare that to something. What was your best webinar you had done previously?
So going back and admittedly, in 2022, I had not done the best job in this business at keeping the audience engaged, at nurturing them. So that's a big part of this as well. So summer of 2022, that was the last time we did a webinar. We had about 198 sign up, and we had about 60 or 70 show up live.
Yeah.
And
more normal numbers.
yeah. And about, I think, maybe 10 sales. Okay. So it wasn't great. It wasn't the best. So yeah, it was, but again, it was all about, like, I think it had to do with engagement. And back then we just weren't doing a great job at, nurturing the audience, engaging with the audience. So you about double your registrations and double your sales. And the primary thing that changed was nurturing the list. Anything else on that list? Honestly, I will say this. I think that the topic was a really, it's a popular topic. It's a huge topic right now, especially when you're dealing with children who have a trauma history. Behaviors tend to be extreme, and it often leads parents they don't know what to do with them. They don't know how to respond or handle them. So the title of the webinar was how to effectively respond to your child's behaviors. Just a popular topic as well. Yeah. So, yeah.
Do you remember the title of the previous one?
Previous webinar. Oh gosh, man. I think that the previous webinar had to do with, like, your self-care as a caregiver, like how to move from surviving to thriving as a caregiver, something along those lines.
All right, so you got a handful of things. You got nurturing the list. You had this crazy show up rate, which I want to hear about. Nurturing the list, the show up rate, those two specific things. Let's dial into those. So what did you do over the last 6 months or so to nurture the list that you hadn't done prior? What was your strategy there?
Yeah, so taking a page out of what we teach at Growth Tools, I decided to implement a simple content plan. And for us, and for the Honestly Adoption Company, that content plan was to start doing a weekly email newsletter, weekly email update. And so actually, first of the year, we started doing this, and it actually went really well. Like, I had no idea how this was going to go, because it had been a while since I had actually started doing this. And so we created this newsletter, started sending it out Monday or Tuesday of every week. And really, when I look back on it, I think that had a lot to do with the amount of people that signed up for this webinar, because it was to a warm audience, which wasn't the case a year ago or back in the summer.
So that's only 45 days or so that you've been
Yeah.
doing the simple content plan. So walk me through, what is the simple content plan? Is it an email every week, email every day? What's the basic gist and flow of it?
Yeah, it's a weekly email. So every week we will send out an email that just really gives tidbits on what's going on in our business. So recent blog post, recent podcast. I actually utilize, I'll share resources. I'll do some behind the scenes teaching, like just real brief couple of paragraphs. So essentially, it just points them towards current free content that we have, podcast, blog, popular resources that we found to be really helpful for us, and then some behind the scenes teaching. That's essentially what it is. It's not a very long email either. So
So you hadn't really communicated with them in a minute. You start sending this email every week for 4 or 5 weeks, and then you run the webinar. What were the open and click rates of those simple content plan emails? Just as a frame of reference.
So yeah, as I looked back over the last month, we have averaged between 30 and 40% in terms of an open rate.
Yeah.
Click rate, if I remember right, I think it was right about, I want to say like maybe 3%, 4%,
Okay. Yeah.
5%
And how big is
maybe.
the list?
The list that we were mailing to is about 14,000 emails.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, so what do you attribute? Let's go to topic number 2. We got simple content plan. You attribute that, it sounds like, as the biggest portion is just nurturing the list so that when you did a promotion, did a webinar event, people were interested and signed up. But a crazy number of people showed up for this thing. So what worked there?
Yeah, yeah. So one of the things when it comes to webinars, a couple of years ago, I think I was watching something that Michael Hyatt was doing, or maybe Jeff Goins, somebody like that, and they were incentivizing showing up for the webinar, and then when you got on the webinar, they incentivized staying all the way till the end. So in other words, like, hey, show up to this thing live, and we're going to give you a free, download or a free video. Then when you got on the webinar, it was, hey, if you stay all the way till the end, all the way till I say my final goodbye, we're going to send you a free gift, this exclusive PDF guide that we created, or video bundle or something like that. And when I saw that, I was like, ooh, that's good. And so I utilized that in this webinar.
What was your show up bonus, and then what was your stay to the end bonus?
The show up bonus was a kind of what I would call like a green room teaching, where, hey, once the webinar is over, I'm going to send you some exclusive content just for, showing up live to the webinar. And then the people that stayed all the way till the end got a brand new, what did I call it? Caregiver Survival Guide, which was a brand new, like 5-page ebook and video that I created. And I literally created it like the week before. So it was hot off the press.
And what was the show up one? I don't know if I heard the exact thing there.
The show up bonus was show up live, and we'll send you like our green room teaching, like it's basically just bonus content from what I taught at the webinar. Okay. So I just kind of expounded on
I like the branding of the green room content thing. But
yeah.
For you practically, what was in that for them?
Oh, it was just an extra video of me teaching. So I took like a couple of the smaller points and expounded on them.
Okay. Is that the first time you've used the show up and stay to the end bonus concept?
Yeah, I've used the show up to the end, but I really wanted to press into the show up live bonus. And so that first time, yeah.
Yeah, and 70% of people that registered showed up. I was just looking at a client that I'm working with, and they had 480 people register. No. This last one was lower. They had 170 register and 30 people show up.
Wow.
Do the math on that. It was somewhere around a 16% show up rate, which is like, okay, we got to fix that. That's a big problem. Because typically we'll see 30 to 40% show up live, but to see 60, I think, percent is what you had is really extraordinary. So how did you talk about the bonus in the emails in a way? Yeah. How did you talk about the bonus they would get in the email? Kind of what was the narrative of that?
So the first thing I did was I waited to talk about the show up bonus until a couple of emails in. So I did, I think, 3 or 4 emails on the front end before we did the webinar. And I waited, which I think, to be honest, I think part of the reason why I waited is that I forgot to mention it in the first email. So I waited. So it was kind of by like, oops, so here it is. And then basically in one of the emails, it was a PS because a lot of people read the PS. A lot of people will scroll to the bottom and read that PS line. So I mentioned it in the PS, like, hey, if you're scroll to the bottom type person, training's coming, and oh, by the way, if you join us live, we're sending you some extra teaching content. So PS was one of them, and then the other one, I think we created an email like the day before that was specifically about the show up content. So hey, live training's coming. We're going to talk about this, 3 bullet points, and then if you show up live, we'll give you this bonus teaching content. We talked about like, hey, of course there's a replay, but show up live, you get this. So yeah,
just kind of expanded the bullet points of the green room teaching in made
Yep.
it the main focus of one of the invite emails.
Yep.
Yeah, that's really smart.
Yeah.
I'm going to send this recording to my client so she can copy this for her next webinar. That's good. Okay, so you did several really good things here. First, you got a bunch of people to register, and then you get a whole bunch of those people to show up. I'm going to attribute the register in my brain, this is how my brain's working, to the nurture, but that's really quick. But also to the title, because this title is just way better. Or the topic of it. It's my guess would be, and I'm totally just making assumptions here, most people that are caregiving are really bad at taking care of themselves. So a training that focuses on me taking care of myself isn't where my mind's at. It's mainly fixing what I perceive as the problem, which is a child I can't connect with or can't help overcome this cycle they're in or something.
Yep.
So the title makes sense. The nurture makes sense. That gets people to register. And you had some really good incentive to register. The show up makes sense because you had a really good bonus that you put focus on. By the way, I would really love to see all these emails so we can share them and I can study them myself. So note to self to follow up to get that.
Yeah.
Then, okay, but those two things are really good. But then you had, I think you said 40 out of 380 buy. Is that right? 40 units sold and about 380 people show up. So that's a really high 10% conversion rate of the webinar is really extraordinary. So what do you attribute that to?
Oh man, I think that I still think that the topic has a lot to do with it, right? It is just it's what I would call a mouth-watering topic. Like I really need, and they also really need help in this area. One thing I did was I borrowed a little bit of our price increase lingo at Growth Tools, and I did make it clear in the pivot, the sales pivot in the webinar, that hey, we're gonna be repackaging this in just a couple of months, and when we do, it's gonna go from 147, which was the price point I was selling it to I think I priced it up at like 497. So I was gonna double the price or more than double the price, and so adding that little like, hey, price is going to go up. Get this now. In fact, I even did a call with one of the people who purchased. That was a bonus, a fast action bonus. You can get on a call with me for 30 minutes. And that's what he said. He said, man, I bought because you were hiking the price.
Yeah.
And that was the mental trigger during the pitch. So I think that had a lot to do with it. The fact that it was a behavior response workshop, and we basically said, listen, we're going to help you workshop a behavior plan, and we're going to give you communication templates to talk to teachers and talk to coaches and things like that. But then also that incentive that this price is going to go up, and when it does, you're going to get access to the upgrades if you purchase it now. Yeah. So that's part of it. I think the topic has a lot to do with it, right? I didn't really do much in terms of like stacking up. You see some of the webinars where there's like 60 slides just on what you get and the stack and everything. I didn't really do any of that. It was pretty simple. I just had 2 slides. Here's what each of the modules are. Here's what the bonuses are. And here's the fast action bonus. And that was it.
And the product you're selling is not your coaching. So it's one of the 3 courses. Which of the courses
Correct.
is it?
This is our behavior response workshop.
And that's tell me about the product just a little bit. What's the normal price? I think you said 197. And what all's in it? What's the transformation people get when they buy it?
Yeah. So the pricing as it stands now, and before we hike the price, is 147. It's a 3-module workshop, and what it does is it gives people a plan. First of all, it gives them a behavior plan. That's one of the things that we create through this. It's a template that we offer, but we walk people through regulation strategies, co-regulation strategies when it comes to your connecting with your child, and then also how to prevent behaviors and how to intervene in behaviors before. So essentially, I know I'm kind of getting into the weeds in terms of like lingo that foster adoptive parents would understand, but basically what it does is it gives people strategies to change their response to their child, right? Because once you understand what's going on with your child, then you know how to respond differently, right? So now I'm not just looking at this child like, ooh, this is a bad kid behaving badly. I know the context for the behavior, so now I can change my response and approach it with compassion and understanding, change my words, my tone. So that's essentially what this does. It helps people change how they respond to their child.
I'm curious, this is totally just going down the rabbit hole you're on further and less on the marketing side, but is this something that most parents, even if they don't have adopted kids with trauma, would be better parents as a result of using?
Yeah, totally. Yeah. We've helped a lot of neurotypical, which is basically parenting children with no significant trauma. Yeah. Because it teaches you that behaviors all have all human behavior has an origin. Mm-hmm. And when you understand that we're not just happy because, we're not just angry because, there's a reason for that. Mm-hmm. It helps you to reframe your approach and reframe your understanding. So, yeah.
All right, let's zoom back out to the business side. What's one of your biggest takeaways from this win that you'll apply to the business going forward?
The simple content plan works. Continue to nurture the audience. They don't care what you're selling until they know how much you care about them, essentially, right? So nurture them, and then continue to create content that really hits a pain point. That's the biggest lesson that I've learned. Like, behaviors. Understanding behaviors and how to respond differently is a huge topic, right? So continue to hone in and understand what your audience needs. And then just continue, like the reciprocity is a huge piece of this. Consistently nurture the audience, consistently promote to the audience. That's what I'm going to continue to do. So I already have plans on when we're going to do the webinar again, when it's going to become evergreen.
When's that, by the way? When are you doing it next?
Next will be in just a couple of weeks.
Okay, good. I was hoping it was.
So we're going month to month.
Yeah, good. All right, good. Take this one, do it again. Yeah.
Yeah.
What's the biggest problem in the business right now?
The biggest problem was that we had kind of stalled out at 15,000 subscribers, and we need to grow. And so I'm also leveraging partnerships. So I've started pitching partners, and I'm landing them. And we'll see how it goes, because as I sit here right now, haven't executed partnerships yet, but we're about to. Yeah. So fresh stream of leads.
What does that look like specifically for you? What type of partnerships?
Yeah. So primarily what I do is I do partner webinars. Okay. So I pitch to people's audiences, hey, I'll show up and teach for 60 minutes, really quick 60 minutes. And I love that type of partnership, because typically what I'll do is I build the registration link. So I'm capturing leads that way, and then I always offer a lead magnet at the end of the partner webinar.
Yeah, that's good.
So,
and now you have a webinar that converts really well, so you can do a free workshop style where you don't pitch, or do a straight up pitch deal at the end. So
yeah, that's
awesome, man. Thanks so much for sharing. I'd love to collect the webinar and the emails and everything and share it with clients inside of our coaching, so they can study it and learn from it. Yeah. So we'll follow up and grab some of those items. But thanks so much, brother. I appreciate you.
Yeah, my pleasure.